The following is an A-Team PR production.
Welcome to the Free Range Texan podcast. We're kind of an escape hatch for everyday life. We know today's world has issues. Maybe that's just all the more reason to spend some time. So saddle up with a bunch of Free Range Texans. Here's one now, our host, Michael Shawn.
Thanks, sweetie pie. Free Range Texan, episode 53. Not unlike a world pandemic icebreaker, forcing our way through unusual times. We here at A-Team PR Studio A are not left untouched by the reality that is COVID-19. My wife, who is the chief ranking executive of our parent company, A-Team PR, has now tested positive for COVID. Your thoughts and prayers are appreciated. Back in Free Range Texan episode 28, we introduced a talented lady we were just getting to know. Since that time, we have come to know Gypsy Jayne as an artist and a friend. And she is back with a new album and an update on her never boring career. Powerful music and a cool visit with our friend Gypsy Jayne. Even though our somewhat remote location of our ground zero for the Free Range Texan podcast is a bit off the beaten path, our chief of security, Foxy the Wonder Dog, is on duty and not wearing a mask. However, she is sometimes muzzled for the protection of various and sundry grocery delivery personnel. A-Team PR Studio A is secure as usual. And finally, Michael Shawn's Campfire has what can only be described as a modern-day Gypsy Jayne's update. All this and more coming up on this episode 53 of the Free Range Texan podcast. So, let's saddle up and get ready to ride. Have digital microphone will travel. You're listening to the Free Range Texan News Network. Now, give me that James Earl Jones thing there. Close your eyes and squint. This is FRTNN. Let's try that again. We interrupt this podcast for a Free Range Texan information update. Our sources are now saying that high-ranking officials in the Research and Science Department of Texas A&M University have just announced that they are switching from white rats to lawyers for their experiments. When asked why, Texas A&M researchers answered, "We switched to lawyers for 3 reasons." Reason number 1. There's more of them than rats. Reason number 2. You don't get attached to lawyers. And finally, reason number 3 of why Texas A&M University Science Department officials are switching from white rats to lawyers. There are some things a white rat just won't do.
Well, if that don't beat all.
This has been another Free Range Texan information update.
You believe he said that?
Time now for another segment of the Free Range Talent File. Brought to you by A-Team PR, bringing a host of creative media production and public relations services to our exclusive list of clients. Maybe you could hire the A-Team. And now, here's the next segment of the Free Range Talent File. And now, on this edition of the Free Range Talent File, back by popular demand, it's Gypsy Jayne with her new song from her new album, Roll Your Blues Away, on the Free Range Texan podcast.
Grab a drink. Grab a smoke, take a swig, take a toke. Call your friends, have some fun. Everybody's gonna get them some as we roll our blues away. Hey, hey. Don't be shy, just come on by. The moon is high up in the sky. You're all invited, father and son. There's plenty of room for everyone to roll their blues away.
course, as we said, roll your blues away. And our special guest on the Free Range Texan podcast is none other than our friend, Gypsy Jayne. Hey, Jayne, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? That's a fun song, huh?
Oh, it is. Listen, the whole album is a great song. I remember a question I was going to ask you before we went on now, and that reminds me, what is the name of your new album?
Yeah, this new record's coming out here this month, and it's called Roll Your Blues Away. It's just Gypsy Jayne, Roll Your Blues Away. That's the title track on the album.
Oh, great.
Y'all are our first group to actually get to play it for. No one's heard this record, so we get to kind of feature it with you guys, and pretty excited about it.
It is one power stroke after another on that album. As I was listening to it, did Scott Ferris produce that with you?
Yes, sir.
Scott
Ferris at Amusement Park Recording Studio here in Lubbock. Been working together off and on for a long time, and so with this new band that we're about almost 3 years old now, but with this group of guys and going back in with a whole new project, it's just been an incredible experience working with him and him putting his ear on it and his magic mixing ability.
And this is the same band that has been playing with you for a while.
Yeah, well, for the last, New Year's Eve is our anniversary, so we'll be 3 years at New Year's Eve this year. Prior to that, I had the Travelers. I had my trio. Yeah. And I think you've heard that. That was my previous record. With another set of guys. So Shad Doherty and Brent Cagle and Joe Smith and Jace Logan, they're just a force to be reckoned with.
Well, Gypsy Jayne, our guest, man, I'm telling you, it is like talking to an old friend when you come back on the program, and I'm glad that you're here. There's been quite a few things going on, and yet dead as a doornail all at the same time.
Right.
Isn't it interesting? Because I already know a little bit because we've talked, but I have had so many artists from all over the country and even different parts of the world tell me that this has been one of the most productive times in the area of songwriting and even eventually producing and recording. And stuff is coming out that they say never would have come out except for this quiet time they were forced to spend. How's that affected you?
Yeah, I would completely agree. It's just been, I work and I do different stuff, kind of try to keep an income coming in, but to not be able to play gigs on a regular basis, on a weekly basis and do all of that, let alone hang out consistently or get to jam together consistently, for all of us to kind of go to our corners and regroup for ourselves personally and actually quasi or pretty much forced to take that time. It's been really interesting. I would say I've definitely got to spend a lot of time writing and hanging out and spending time that direction. And when I do get the chance to talk to the guys, they're pretty much working on their gear or working on, tone or what's the next move, so it's actually kind of exciting. But this is such a rarity of a year where it's kind of, he puts all our artists, in this place where it's like, oh, well, here's some time, make some art, for you don't have to go worry about performing it and stuff, which we love and thoroughly enjoy, but to get to spend some personal time with your instrument and yourself, it can be a positive in a lot of ways.
So, Jayne, as an artist, you can say without a doubt that you are accomplishing things now that you would have probably never slowed down and done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you know me, I work constantly, or I'm always doing something, not just on music, but just across the board, doing odd jobs or plumbing or, electrical or managing some stuff.
I am so cutting that out. Here is a young lady that is absolutely, it's not just me saying it, everybody's saying it. She's somehow a cross between Janis Joplin and Grace Slick, and she can be this regular gal just sitting and enjoying, having a good time, and she walks into the recording studio, and this monster comes out, and she is just so powerful, it just blows you away. And the same thing happens when you step up on stage. You take control of the entire room. And for you to say, well, and then I work on the plumbing and the electrical. Your dad was a contractor. That's where that comes from, right?
Yeah, he was a maintenance guy. He's just always done maintenance and, odd jobs. And I've just got to follow him around and help him out and do stuff. And so I learned, and now to be in my own stuff or fix up my own little RV or, being able to do stuff personally for myself when a drain starts leaking or, whatever it is, be able to have that skill set.
Jayne, my darling, you are the complete package. That's what you are. Okay. So now, wait a minute. Let's move on here.
Okay. All right.
Jayne, we have this other song. When we opened your portion of our podcast, we played the song Roll Your Blues Away. But we've got another song here that is off your new album called Howl at the Moon. That's something we've all done a time or two. But what's the backstory on Howl at the Moon?
Yeah, well, we just, Mike Burke, who I've written 4 of the 5 songs on this record with.
Way to go, Mike. Yeah,
I know. And he's just great storyteller. We were sitting there and we were kind of trying to figure out this. We were trying to get fired up is what we were trying to do. There was a full moon out, and the dog, Bob Dog, got away and ran out into the parking lot. And so a guy had gotten out of his truck, and Bob kind of nipped at him. So we were kind of stuck at this song, trying to go howl at the moon. We hadn't quite got it yet. We were just like, it's right there. We're going to come on. And here comes Bob and this guy. And so the guy kind of rushes at him and Bob kind of nips. Well, Mike just yells off the porch, hey, don't worry, he might nip, but he won't bite. And that's all it took. We got that line, and here it comes. We're going to howl at the moon. And it just it was just kind of a magical moment.
And a song was born.
And a song was born. And so we've sang it, we play it on the porch or whatever. But then to be able to actually get the band together and produce and get this song together, and Scott working with us and just fine tuning that beast has been a great experience. So it's a really rocking, upbeat, full-fledged Friday night kind of song. And we just released it on Halloween for the public, just as a single, and before the full album came out. So we're just it's just exciting. I don't know. I love playing that song. Plus, it's got some rock and roll in it, too. And so the guys have a lot of fun.
People all over large regions of the United States that are waking up to this sound. Like we were talking before we went on about the guy in New York who works professionally with music and called and said, wow, what a project you guys have sent me here. And that doesn't happen very often. But they're doing that with your latest album. Way to go, Gypsy Jayne.
Thank you. I'm pretty pumped. It's been, here we go, just put out the best of what you got and just throw it out there, and we're giving this record away. So, people going to gypsyjayne.com, and they're able to download that for free, and then it'll all be on all good platforms as well, iTunes, Spotify, things like that.
Well, and let me add to that a lot of that information and your booking information and so on and so forth will be on the article at freerangetexan.net on the blog. You click on the blog and go there to the Free Range Texan blog, and we're going to put the information that was in your bio up. up on that as well. So if folks want to get in touch with you, they can. And I was just going to say, you know, I turned to some of the folks here and kind of grinned when I was looking at that, and I said, you know what? She is at that rare moment in an entertainer's life where you could call this number or you could email this right here to maybe book Gypsy Jayne, and heck, the next thing you know, you're probably talking to Gypsy Jayne.
Yeah, I got you.
So, now I want to tell you that's special. Take it from a guy who gets to interview a lot of artists that are maybe kind of in your position, and a couple of years later, they're not even returning my calls. So I am so pleased to be able to talk to you now. And,
well, I'll keep a special place in my phone for you guys.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, so we're going to have all that on the blog, plus there's lots of extra pictures of Gypsy Jayne and all of the information. If you haven't listened to the podcast, it'll point you right to it, and all of that information is there. And also, what we haven't mentioned yet is we have one of your new videos that you shot on the water at Lake Allen Henry. Now, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we went out and just kind of had an idea of doing just my single or my acoustic songs, you know, that I normally wouldn't play with the band, or some of them are newer songs from this year.
They're beautiful.
We just wanted to thank you. We just wanted to capture them. So we just figured, let's take a pontoon boat out there. And I had a videographer friend, Daniel Clayton, and an audio friend, Mr. Derek Bowl, and they came out and we just spent the afternoon on the water and filmed and recorded using battery power and inverters and stuff, and just sat on the water there off the cap and enjoyed and just played through the songs.
You know,
so
Derek
really
Bowl has been on our podcast as a guest.
Oh, cool.
And we think a lot of him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we have that video on the blog, which is not from the music that we're playing on the podcast. And so you get to hear more and see more when you go there. And that is a whole nother side of Gypsy Jayne, which is exactly what I was talking about earlier. And it's a beautiful thing, and we thank you for sharing that with us. That, again, is at freerangetexan.net. And you can go there and click on the blog, and all of that will come up. So we want you back on the Free Range Texan.
I'd love to be back. Come back. I appreciate you guys.
You are what we call a recurring guest because you're the real deal. You are a West Texas singer, songwriter, recording talent with some serious sound, and we're proud to have you on our podcast.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
So here it is, everybody. Here's Howl at the Moon with Gypsy Jayne on the Free Range Texan podcast.
All my life I've been a slave, working myself right to my grave, doing everything I can to make ends meet and pay the man. Been working all day and my heart's on fire, 'cause by the end of my shift there's still desire for a shot of whiskey and a cigarette, baby, to start the night. I won't forget.
You've been listening to the Free Range Talent File. If you'd like more information about our guest, just go to our website at freerangetexan.net. Also, submissions to be interviewed on the Free Range Talent File should be sent to our website at freerangetexan.net. Hi, this is Michael Shawn, inviting you to join me at my other gig on Boss Country Radio, a worldwide country music network with not just some country music, but all of it. If you've yet to hear us on a broadcast station near you, we're streaming digital stereo at bosscountryradio.com. And I'll be there 10 o'clock weeknights for the Midnight Express.
Boss Country.
You're riding with the Free Range Texan on the best little podcast in Texas. Hi, this is Michael Shawn. I suggest that you get a cup of that cowboy coffee and have a seat by our campfire. Gypsy Jayne is arguably the most infamous Wild West personality in history. He became a legend while staging daring holdups and train robberies, and they're still writing stories and making movies about him. Together with his brother, Frank, and their band of ex-Confederate outlaws, Gypsy left a trail of blood and money from Iowa to Texas. On April 3rd, 1882, the history books tell us that Gypsy Jayne's renegade lifestyle finally caught up with him. Seeking a $10,000 reward for James's capture, Bob Ford entered Gypsy's home and shot him from behind. At the age of 34, Gypsy Jayne was confirmed dead and laid to rest in Kearney, Missouri. But then he was also confirmed dead at the age of 95 and buried in Blevins, Texas. Then again, at the ripe old age of 103, he was again confirmed dead and buried in Granbury, Texas. And to this day, you can visit his grave at the location of your choice. According to the folks in Granbury, Gypsy Jayne wasn't actually killed in 1882. Instead, he faked his death and relocated in North Texas. There, he worked as a railroad contractor under the name of J.W. Gates, though he was more widely known as J. Frank Dalton near the end of his life. Dalton revealed his true identity to Granbury Sheriff at the time, Orrin Baker. According to Sheriff Baker, Dalton spent his final days recounting the adventures he had shared with his brother, Frank, and the rest of the James gang. On the day of Dalton's passing, Sheriff Baker conducted an examination of the body. He observed several scars that appeared to be from bullet wounds, a mark around the neck that resembled that left by an unsuccessful hanging, burns on his feet left by Union interrogators, and a missing tip from an index finger, all of which Baker said were consistent with the incidents known to have occurred in James's life. The folks in Granbury are so convinced that Dalton was telling the truth that they have placed signs in their cemetery showing the way to his grave site, where the headstone reveals Gypsy Woodson James, supposedly killed in 1882. Meanwhile, further south in Blevins, Texas, Beatty Dorset Duke has been picking a fight with whomever will listen to have her great-grandfather, James Lafayette Courtney, recognized as the true Gypsy Jayne. According to Duke, when she was a child, her parents repeatedly told her that Courtney was the notorious outlaw. Later on, she noticed similarities between the photographs of Gypsy Jayne's mother and those of Courtney. When Duke compared the images of Courtney's mother to those of Gypsy Jayne's mother, she was certain they were the same woman. Then Duke recalled the exceptional skill her great-grandfather had with handguns, and the fact that he had always paid for everything in cash. So, how does a person know who's really sealed away in each town's casket? Well, it's the same way you find out which chocolate is filled with raspberry cream. You crack 'em open and see what you get. Fast forward to 1996. The folks in Missouri did just that. After digging up Kearney's Gypsy Jayne, experts performed a DNA test using samples from 2 descendants of Gypsy Jayne's sister. The results indicated that with very little chance of error, everybody else must be hopped up on goofballs. Kearney, Missouri had the real Gypsy Jayne. Betty Duke, however, didn't buy it. Duke petitioned to have her own DNA test performed on her great-grandfather back in Blevins, Texas. The judge hearing her case, however, determined that the evidence simply wasn't strong enough to rule in favor of the opposing family members, who wondered why she would want to associate them with such a dreadful criminal. Then it was Granberry's turn. Bud Hardcastle, a used car salesman and avid Gypsy Jayne enthusiast, volunteered to represent 3 of Gypsy Jayne's supposed grandsons in a search for the resolution. Together, they hoped to unearth Gypsy Jayne's body, or otherwise known as Frank Dalton, and prove his alleged identity. After what turned out to be years of legal wrangling, Hardcastle was finally granted permission for an exhumation in February of 2000. But when workmen moved Dalton's headstone aside and dug up the casket, it turned out that they had uncovered the wrong man. Dalton's earlier grave markers had been stolen enough times that the exact location of the body had been slightly misplaced. Another attempt to find him would have required a second exhumation order, and having spent all of his funds the first time around, Hardcastle has been unable to organize another effort. So, in the end, we're right back where we started. We have a probably, an unknown, and a maybe. Oh yes, and to top it off, there's a banker buried in Brownwood who might also be the outlaw in question. Let's just hope he has a descendant somewhere with good DNA, a convincing lawyer, and a better idea where Gypsy Jayne's body is located, in Brownwood. I'm Michael Shawn. Just another strange but true set of events from our campfire. Adios, my friends. Okay, with apologies to the James family. But man, what a story. That's a wrap on 53. All right, crew, let's tear down the set. Roll those cables up. Episode 54 requires a whole new setup. Sound, make sure we have a clean edit. Post-production meeting in 20 minutes. Sweetie Pie, make us some coffee, will you? Well, that's it. We are officially pulling up stakes on episode 53 with a big hats off and a thank you to our friend Gypsy Jayne. And now I have been asked by the Brain Trust at 18PR to please ask y'all to subscribe to our Free Range Texan podcast, no matter where or how you listen. You see, even on YouTube, it all costs you nothing, but it really helps out in the podcast world. Episode 54 has gone into production already. 54 is scheduled to roll out December 1st, and I will tell you, optimistically, our podcast will return with at least 2 COVID survivors from our crew. We are thankful. Foxy, get in the pickup. Take 'em home, Sweetie Pie.
Thank y'all for listening to the Free Range Texan podcast, produced at 18PR Studios, out yonder in West Texas, with our host, who's been voted the hardest working man in podcasting, Michael Shawn. Feedback or submissions to our program can be submitted on our website, freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. This is Sweetie Pie, on behalf of Michael Shawn and the crew here in Studio A, where we're all looking forward to spending time with you on our next episode of the Free Range Texan podcast. Y'all come back now, you hear?
An 18PR production. End transmission.
That's all. Can we go now, Dad?